It's a beautiful quiet morning here in Liverpool by the Liver buildings, the symbol of the city which was completed in 1911. However, if you were here on the 17th of August 1911, you would have seen coming up the River Mersey behind you the dark grey bulk of a Royal Navy gunboat entering the river. It was HMS Antrim, and its guns were trained on the city. It had been sent in here under the express orders of Winston Churchill, who was then the Home Secretary, and had been sent because of the unrest that had happened in Liverpool over the previous 4 days. 1911 was a year of great unrest in Britain. There was, since May of that year, there'd been strikes, wildcats most of the time happening right across, but very quickly these became formalised, and soon dock workers, railway workers, seamen from all over the place were coming out on strike. When these strikes reached Liverpool, on one day alone 10,000 dockers left their work to protest against the poor wages, the insecure hours, and the general lack of rights that they had. The strikes continued all through the spring and summer of that year, but it was in Liverpool where they really took fruit. It reached its zenith here at St George's Hall on St George's Plateau on the 13th of August, when a general rally had been called, led by the great socialist orator Tom Mann. It said that anywhere between 70 and 100,000 people gathered on this plateau in a spirit of solidarity. Eyewitnesses said it was the first time that they'd seen the people of the Protestant persuasion of the city from places like Everton and Garston mingling freely with the Catholics from Bootle and Scotty Road. Everything was going well until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when suddenly, without warning, the police charged into the peaceful protesters. Led on foot and by horse, eyewitnesses say it was like a war scene afterwards. 186 people ended up in hospital, 95 people arrested. No one really knows what caused the police to charge. Accounts differ, but what we know is that the threat that something violent was going to break out in Liverpool had happened, and things would only get worse. This is Vauxhall Road. It's one of the main roads in and out of Liverpool, and it was here on the 15th of August 1911 that the police convoy, escorted by the Royal Hussars, was travelling with the prisoners of a few days earlier from the city centre to Walton Jail. They'd been having bricks thrown at them by the populace and ongoing skirmishes, but it was around here, at this junction, where the real tragedy occurred. The Royal Hussars, with loaded rifles with live ammunition, shot into a crowd and killed 2 men. One of them was 19-year-old Carter, called John Sutcliffe. The other, which happened slightly further up the road, was a docker called Michael Prendergast, only 30 years old. The fact that these men had been killed by the army, 2 civilians killed on the streets of this country, was shocking, and there was a real fear in the establishment that it would cause even more unrest in Liverpool, and it was for that reason that Winston Churchill ordered HMS Antrim into the River Mersey. Not only that, he ordered 3,500 other army troops into the city. Liverpool's own military forces were confined to their barracks. The government felt that they couldn't quite trust the loyalty of those men. There's not much to remember Sutcliffe and Prendergast other than this plaque. Quite a small, inconspicuous plaque on a small, inconspicuous building. But what those men and people like them achieved changed the face of Britain forever. It really cemented the power of collective arguments and unions and the workers' rights that we enjoy today. And a legacy of the events of 1911 is that by November of that year, the Liverpool Dockers Union, which had about 7,000 members at the start of the year, had swelled to over 30,000. And it's people like this that we should remember. If you're interested in more stories like this, look for the hashtag this week, Heritage of Protest, on Twitter, and hopefully you'll find a lot more information about subjects like this.